Hey everyone, thanks for coming out this evening. It's good to be back in the library for literary reading. We last did this in March of last year. We'll hope to do it more often in the future. Thanks to Melody for supporting us in that way. And thanks to Gib and Devon and Cody, the AV team, who set up for us twice today. And we really appreciate everyone's efforts. My name is Nick Neely. I'm an assistant professor of English writing and the director of the creative writing program here at the MFA in creative writing at EOU. And really happy to have poets Darla Mottram and Stephanie Adams-Santos with us tonight. They've made the journey here from Portland and sort of threaded the needle of late winter weather to be with us. Earlier today, we had a really, I thought, awesome, wide-ranging conversation about their books and poetry in general in Zabel, and that conversation's already on YouTube if you want to check it out down the line if you're interested in these books and hearing more from them. Tonight they're going to read in a more sustained capacity, and then we'll take your questions to finish, I hope. They also have, I should point out, they have some copies of their books to sell directly, so see them if you'd like a copy, and I'm sure they'd be excited to sign it for you. So I'll introduce our poets, and Stephanie's going to read first, and Darla second. And I'll share a little words from others about their books also. Stephanie Adams-Santos is a Guatemalan-American writer whose work spans poetry, prose, and screenwriting. They are the author of several full-length collections and chapbooks, Dreams of Xibalba, which was a finalist for the Oregon Book Award in Poetry in 2024, and their previous book, Swarm, Queen's Crown, was a finalist for the Lambda Literary Award in Poetry for LBGTQ writing. They've received grants and fellowships from Sundance, Film Independent, Vermont Studio Center, Regional Arts and Culture Council, and Oregon Arts Commission. Dream of Xibalba is Stephanie Adams-Santos' incantatory long poem, which draws the reader into a dream world where the barrier between life and death grows porous, populated by ancestors and spirits. The influence of such poets as Cecilia Vicuña, Federico Garcia Lorca, and Iván Gol is evident here, yet Adams-Santos' voice and vision are entirely your own. Dream of Xibalba is a unique, epic work of cultural and spiritual significance. Darla Mottram is a poet, writer, and visual artist, also from Portland. Recurrent, their first book, was a finalist for the Oregon Book Award in Poetry last year. And they created and ran a online literary journal, Gaze, that has published some of Stephanie's work, I note. So Darla's book, Recurrent, brushes family history against the grain, using exquisitely crafted poetic text to question, amplify, expose, undermine, and redeem, a documentary, an archival chronicle of abandonments and temporary retrievals. In the process, she actively exhibits why it is only poetry through its own peculiar linguistic and formal deviances that can even try to resuscitate the life worlds and the lived realities of those people, including herself, whose shades flicker on the edges of bureaucratic reports, photographs, letters, and fragmentary memories. Thank you so much to both of you for being here tonight, and I'm happy to hand the evening over to Stephanie.
How's this sound? Is this okay? Thank you. Thank you so much, Nick, for inviting us out here, and just been a really sweet adventure just traveling over, across Oregon with Darla and kind of all the poetic conversations we've been having, and it makes me want to come back and spend more time. I wanted to start with a poem. This is a book that I just recently picked up. It's called Ruins and Other Poems by Samer Abu Hawash, who is a Palestinian poet. And this book was recommended by Brandon Shimoda, who's a poet I really trust. And when he recommends a book, I definitely check it out. And Darla and I were just talking that this is one of those books you open and something grabs you. And it's really rare to find a book like that just out of the blue. So this poem is called "We Will Lose This War." These are translated from Arabic. We will lose this war. We won't cut down a tree. We won't burn a field. We won't kill a man or a woman, a grandparent or a child. We won't disturb the sleep of an unborn baby still swimming unaware in the bliss of first waters. We won't startle a bird flitting aimlessly from branch to branch, or hold back a mare trotting dreamily towards sunset. We won't distract a cloud passing over villages, reminding them of their original names. We will lose this war. We will lose it with our spilled blood. We will lose it with our severed limbs and gouged eyes, our wounded hearts. We will lose this war with our bereft howls, with a sorrow that refuses to leave us, a grief we've been tending for so long. It has become our twin, our loyal shadow. We will lose this war and then lose it again. We will lose this war the way we lost each war before it and every one after. We will lose the war when we remember everything that happened, when we forget everything that happened, when we neither remember nor forget. And finally, as mere dust in the wind, a wandering echo in the wilderness, we will once again lose this war. But before we lose the war, and after we lose the war, we will continue to stare into our killer's eyes. We will anchor our gaze in their souls. We will live on in their nightmares. We will sleep in their beds. We will sit at their tables. We will be their morning coffee and their evening wine. When they look out of windows, the birds will not see them. The birds, too devoted to gathering our remains, scattered in the air, will not see them. When they step into gardens, the trees, too busy guarding our wandering souls, will not see them either. When our killers look into mirrors, they will not see their faces, but ours, many of us in the mist. They will finally realize that they have become nothing but memories of ghosts in the great abyss. They will never understand how they annihilated us, then annihilated us, then annihilated us, and yet could not erase from their mirrors our shining image, nor could they erase from our faces that hazy, oblivious light, that pure, radiant smile. Isn't that so beautiful and sad? This book has been so close to my heart reading it, because even like this poem, it reminds us that how much is lost in war, in genocide, and colonization, in the erasure of people. And that loss is true, and that pain remains, and also there is something that remains alive, and that's very much something I reckon with in in this book, Dream of Xibalba. And I was really intrigued reading the introduction to learn about a form that I'd never heard of called the qasida, which is an ancient, pre-Islamic poetry form that sort of mirrors the hero's journey. And I'll just read this little passage from the translator Huda Fakhreddin about the qasida, which is one of the forms that Hawash plays with in this book. The Qasida always launches from a confrontation with time, from a reflection on ruin, a conversation with stones, traces of lost time and loved ones. The poet then journeys, turns away from the site of ruin, and sets off into the desert, the inventory of meanings and images, searching for a language to break the silence, a language to reconstruct a world in place of the lost one. The poet's journey is often in search of direction or destination, and the final movement of the Qasida is the arrival or the return home of the rejuvenated or rediscovered self, individual or collective, affirmed through the successful crossing of space and time in the structure of poetic utterance. I just love that idea of beginning with a ruin and setting off in search of something that you don't know what, and then returning home. And this idea of the collective being part of that return home, that you're returning home to an awakened self, but also to a community, is so beautiful. So I highly recommend this book, Ruins, and I'll have it out if anyone wants to snap a picture or write it down. Dream of Shibalba started, this is a single poem, book length, contained in all of these fragments. And it started after the death of my grandmother, my Guatemalan grandmother on my mom's side, who held so much of our family history and culture for us. And it's, you know, when you're living with people who hold part of your world, you take that for granted. And then when they're gone, and this is also true of places, right? It's like when you leave a home or when a person you love is gone, a place or an era of your life, you realize like how much of yourself was held in this external person, place, or thing. And so it kind of sent me on this journey of searching out these pieces of myself and lineage. And it was at a time in my life when I was also, living in far from home, and there were like sirens. Every night I would hear people screaming outside my apartment. There was just a lot of violence. My family's Guatemalan, and so very attuned to like what's happening at the border. And this was 2016 when there was a lot of like really horrific stories of children being separated from parents at the border, and just all of these kind of horrors, nightmares, sadness, longing, lostness. And this book kind of arose from like the melding of all of those things. And a big part of that is this idea of haunting and ghosts and these afterlives that we encounter. And so I'll just start kind of in the middle, and I'll begin with a passage that I started this afternoon that kind of starts with this idea of, that comes from a Guatemalan superstition, that if you take the tears of a dog and put them on your own eye, you'll be able to see ghosts. And it's kind of a warning told to children, but of course then that's what they want to do. And just a few other things. Zaculeo is the name of the ruins that were near my grandmother's house, just a 10-minute walk away. And Xibalba is the name of the Mayan underworld, and it's a place of initiation, and it's unlike the Christian hell. It's not like a place of punishment, but it's more of just a place that exists where people travel to, and it very much is a place of confrontation with death. And yeah, so we'll start there. In the tunnels beneath Saculeo, you put on the sleep of a mongrel. a secret perfume touched to the fold of each eye. Out into the day under the sun, you wear the dog's glistering tears. Touched in each eye with the rheum of a dog, a sixth sense opens. Una tela oscura, hecho de miradas lejanas, a clandestine cloth woven from time. Now stains of the past come alive in the air, sharp against your nostrils. Blooms of rot and huele a noche, shapes you couldn't see before. Handprints on a wall, moaning forms that float through the house, fossils of anguish, recuerdos del machete. You dreamt of a girl in the desert between two moons. She wore two masks, one of broken teeth and the other made of leaves. The ground was rotten at her feet. It moved, unfolding, inviting as a bed. Beneath the masks, a bit of water gurgled over stone, the sky a reflection of water. Water in her hands, water in the river of her gaze. Soft light and a vulture's shadow lay over you both. A flower floated to her breast, pale blue, transparent as an eye sleeping in tulle. Copal. Copal, by the way, is an incense made from the resin of trees. Copal is wept from trees. Lágrimas doradas crecidas en las sombras de la sierra. Copal of your mother's country, copal of her earliest memory of her childhood land nestled at the foot of mountains, near the ruined city of white earth and ash and the echoes of stone. Copal is the blood of trees. Sangre ámbar resumbando sobre la memoria. Past the armful of lilies in the little blue room, in el cuartecito azul, the smoldering corner is all full of smoke. Your grandmother kneels before the two Christs, black twins of sorrow, silver and lace, fanning from the grace of their heads, and a golden garland strung between them. Señores de Esquipulas, suffused with incense and the soot of prayers, spoken from burning mouths, they point to all corners of the earth, inward and outward. In the Laguna de Ocubila, the dead are only asleep. Bone is to stone an old memory. In the land of the turtles, bones are carried back. Look beyond the orchard of aguacates. The flowers of a shrine open their mouths, their yellow eyes. Bent in prayer, the body is an arc of listening, is a rainbow of incarnate light leaning toward the groaning of gods and whispers of beheading, the beating of drums, circular in blood rhythms. Now hens scratch at the earth, searching for something to kill, and when the air is golden with vibrations and annihilation rings in their clawed hands, they tear open the floor and call up the soft green genesis of the worm. Kneel and carve your bones with all symbols of night. Not jasmine, not fireflies, the other night. The thin chirps of a spider monkey in a neighbor's yard calls for something in the trees. Not hunger, not thirst. There's hardly a sound as you lean all the way into darkness, through the heavy leaves, through the loam. Night of the hands, night of the eyes, eclipse of the flesh. Your head goes to seed tonight, a numb sound, thoughts weakly beating down to the ground, the dogs watching you silently with their ears pricked. This is the Sabbath of the body, where you have no wife, no lover. You are only a stem, a bend in the breeze. Innocence flutters away, just a leaf from a tree. Look, look where its edges find the earth and leave no trace. Look how sky fulfills an entrance to the body. One body fills with another. Body takes of body. And again, the lightlessness inside asserts the rose. In a field, a little acupuncture of light pushes towards the rosebuds of your eyes, undoing the burrs of your stubborn lips, your stubborn face. The grass eclipses the wreck of your heart, and the names of things crawl away on long feet, blind and slow, leaving only traces. Day and night you carve a circle from stone, comiendo la casa de barro, eating the adobe house on the hill where no one can see you, gnawing and grinding, taking onto yourself the adobe that tastes of flesh, the splendor of dirt. You consume the old house, flesh without sorrow. This fragment, when I was a kid in Guatemala, I had a babysitter who would take me up the hill, and there was a adobe house under construction, and she would eat pieces of the adobe, and it was like her secret. It was some compulsion she had, but it just stuck in my mind, like the girl who eats houses, and it's so interesting how she just appeared in this fragment, and this idea of like eating a house, eating the earth, so mythic. Just read a little bit from the end. You can kind of tell from how these poems move. It's not linear, and most of these images have arrived from actual memory or stories or things that have happened, and they all just coexist in this kind of braided inner world, and letting them sort of emerge in this way and all live together. There's this kind of wholeness in encountering one's inner world in that way, like when you dream and it all makes sense in the dream, and then when you wake up you try to explain it and it no longer makes sense. But this book kind of helped me hold all these fragments and all these like moments of both pain, sorrow, but also history and lineage, and in a moment they're whole, and then they kind of dissolve into this, underworld place. One day you'll return to the place of the parrots, unhunt them, give back the depths of their eyes. A toad sings from your tongue, vanishing into water, green and brown and black, swimming into shadows. From the sole of each foot, two stela grow upright, bearing all the names you've forgotten, all the names you never knew. Now only an insect persists in the yard, unseen for the dark. Its black churr waves invisibly between us, a veil of anguish enfolding our kiss. Kukulkan is a Mayan creator god who's like a winged serpent. Kukulkan parts the grass behind you. A velvet meat breathes. The past, which has no eyes, blindly nudges along. Outside the house is the feathery perfume of plantain, a bitter caramel of dead leaves, all the memories you carry. Tomorrow, maybe, tomorrow, the god's dark head will crown from the wound. When the locust comes to the window, you must let your blood move to each side, making a path. It's okay if you have nothing to sing. Sensation walks through you. It's okay to lie still, to let the blooming happen all around you. You will be good again when the flimsy grass pierces the earth. And I'll just end with that's the last fragment in the book, and it reminded me of where it came from, which was, it came from a Mahmoud Darwish quote about fragility. Poetry can resist barbarity only by confirming its attachment to human fragility, like a blade of grass growing on a wall while armies march by. It's one of my favorite quotes, and just the resilience of grass and this like flimsy thing that can be walked on and torn out, and yet it pierces through the earth and it grows again and again and again. But thank you so much all for listening and being here, and I'm so happy to be here with my friend Darla and excited to hear what she's sharing tonight.
That was so beautiful, Stephanie. Try to adjust this. So beautiful and powerful, and Stephanie is so talented at contextualizing their work and kind of speaking back to the current moment that we're in globally and collectively. And I don't share that skill of being able to talk about my work. So I'm just gonna dive right in. So this is from Recurrent in Loco Parentis. I was born with a long-term plan for the road to the sea, and then it went to the rain again. I am leaving to see my mother. Wow, you're so resilient. I mean, you know what you want, and you know what you want, and you know how to make you happy. Wind seething, sliding leaves along paved path, teething. What? To the road, to the rain it went down the night again. I am nothing to say, and then I was just like a little dog, and I didn't want you that way. I was born in a long flight over the sea, rained back, hapless pavement. I am to see my mother now. People like you know what is happening, you know what you want, and you know how to make you happy. Little armadillo lullaby, guarded tongue, learned nobody likes to know what really happened. I was born to be here for the last flighting night of a joy. I am leaving now to see if you'll have me. I was born in the sea for a while. Be wet, said the happy teething song, said I could look like her. Oh, a thicket. You must feel the way it touches you is lonely. Armadillo, armadillo. I wanted you to notice the way I'd changed, how I didn't turn my head when you spoke, the corner of me still leafing. A little sea that never hurt, no, leaves blown back from tomorrow. And then I was telling her what it would be like to be in the same place as I am turning into this version of her this morning, no more night splattered indigo wanting. So I'll let go of a little something more difficult than you said let's celebrate. Stars still cuddling my memory, like fattened ticks I tweeze. I woke in the sea, no one was coming. It felt like a migraine, migration, I kissed the thought of you. Like, oh honey, milk thicket ticking, I felt you move, tongue kick against the roof of. And you don't want, and you know what, I don't want to remember this either, or I am not remembering at all. To the sea, you said. That night we could flight the road, teasing my tips of toes. The stars were suffering us a little happiness. I was born in a long wind, a drawer half open to nothing. Washing myself on the road to the sea, this was always the plan. I was always longing to see my mother chasing her shadow through the shadows. You took off your leaves, whooshed through me, little starlit paradigms. Went to the mouth of the sea, no plan, no body met me there. I danced with myself on the sand spit, daring the waves to. All this sea muck, all this milk thistle, thick stars, wet dog lapping at the corner of the sky, I woke singing. In the morning, and you're so, you really know how to leave, you really know how to leave me in limbo. I still feel your dream of me. And then this one's called Matryoshka, like the Russian nesting dolls, which was the title of this collection for a long time before I landed on Recurrent. One doll, seemingly whole, though upon closer inspection, the seam announces itself as somehow more real than the doll. I am falling inside myself again. No way out, no end to the hollow places I find in me, an echo I can't source. A booming voice demands I divide myself from myself again and until what, after all, is a self. I keep looking for the grain in the center, too small for expression or even a face that can't be pulled apart to reveal another piece of smooth, dead wood around which I formed a seemingly whole life. And even if I were to find a core indivisible that is not hollow, not a response to a question someone mouthed while dying, how will I know? How will I know it can't be halved? Who will stop me from dividing yet again myself? And then this is the final poem in the collection, called I Was Watching the Osprey. Gliding along the tree line, a smooth, long nothingness, and then, if I'd blinked, I'd have missed it. Tilt, plummet, a straight line crashing into water, a burst of wing beats as it bore itself back to air, nothing having been caught. I was watching the osprey gliding along, flying smooth and piercing the water, piercing its own reflection, wing beats thrashing air, beads of water everywhere, nothing having been caught. I watched the osprey repeating over and over its simple thought. I myself a nothingness, a scooped out fruit. No, not like that. Like my eyes, ospreys, looking along the tree line, tree after tree reflected in the water, which, reflecting the sky, appeared blue, and reflecting me too was the ospreys gliding and plummeting, which I began to think of as a way of living, the falling and the coming up empty, not so much the failure to catch as the freedom to continue carrying forth what can't be abandoned. And then I wanted to end with a prose piece that is more recent. It is several fragments from a memoir that I've been working on for the past few years, and this isn't the exact order that the fragments appear in the manuscript, but for the purposes of being published in this journal, they were pushed together. And this is Buckman Journal, which is based in Portland. It's a really cool little journal. Should look them up. And the manuscript is called Wallow. Having left my mother's womb, I began detoxing from the drugs she took while I was growing inside her. At 16, I was afraid to become her. At 32, I wanted to lie down in the dirt beside her, fit my skeleton back inside the confines of hers. At 36, I am now the age she was when she gave birth to me, and she is 20 years dead, long scattered to the winds, long restored to the basin of the sea. To be born, to bear the memories of those who came before, to follow or not follow the winding path of their fading footsteps, to end up like them regardless, a grain of unidentifiable sand in time's lustrous hourglass. Perhaps next time it will be me who gives birth to her. Perhaps I'll hold her in my arms, become the mother I never wanted to be but always dreamed of having, and she too will have her heart's desire, the boundless love she craved and was not given. That love, moving backward, will flood the dried up rivers of the past, return history to its rightful plenitude. Because time is mysterious, anything is possible. If there's a glimmer of hope to be found in this world, it's that the past may be no more certain than the future, that nothing is fixed in place, that even the heavens tremble. We think we know how the story ends because we know how it started, but the end rewrites the beginning, and thus there is no beginning or ending, only the ever-becoming now. I am 36, and I am not yet a dust mote descending the fathomless depths. My dead swirl in and out of me. Centuries go by. The sky speaks in ecstasy. My rat heart gnaws its way through the rib cage of my mind. I am all feeling. A lone bell sounds in my silence of memory. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. I dare you, the heart says, with each audacious beat. And from childhood's hour, I could not resist its gushing provocation. My mother signed a piece of paper abdicating her right to parent me, a certificate of irrevocability, my life cleaved in two. Nothing in nature is pristine. Everything is constantly in a state of collapse, decay, and regeneration. In nature, it's not always easy to tell if the dead and rotting. In nature, it is not always easy to tell the dead and rotting from that which is new and unfurling. For a time, I collected pictures of stags whose antlers were unwittingly draped in moss and ferns, flowers, and the rotting remains of their own ruined velvet. Nature is avant-garde. Nature is an experimental poem being forever written and erased, simultaneously created and destroyed. I belong to this tradition, this coming together and apart in the same breath. I spent nearly 5 years with a boy with a sharpened name. I was drawn to it, his name, a knife I wanted to swallow. Perhaps there was always a part of me that craved damage to honor the rift that begat me. When I say his name now, think it or spell it, it is strange in my mouth, foreign to my tongue. How quickly we forget the lives we for a time led, then turned away from, drawn as we are to the selves we are always becoming. Our past and future selves are strangers to us too. Time tugs at us, disintegrating our borders, recombining us into new shapes, new identities. The fallen needles of the pine become the lining of a bird's nest. Then the nest breaks apart, falls to the forest floor, begins the slow process of decay, of becoming soil. I thought I would come undone when I left him, and I did. I became something else. Something that no longer craved damage. We were taught to be grateful. We were not taught to grieve. Wallowing as an act of reclamation. One doesn't heal from a wound while running from it. One must sit with the wound, tend to it, treat it almost as a mother treats her child. One nurtures the wound as much as one nurtures a seedling or any tender thing. The wound becomes a site of regeneration, a garden of possibilities. Stay with the wound long enough, and the tears one cries into its ragged fold saturate the roots of saplings that will someday provide shade and sustenance with their branches, their fruit. Which is not to say we are actively making something of the wound, that we are trying to transform our pain into beauty. Fuck that. We're just letting ourselves feel it. Grief gets to be itself for as long as it needs. I like sitting in cemeteries alone, in part, I think, because my mother wasn't buried. I'd like to believe her spirit is, at last, at rest. And in a cemetery, it's easy to imagine that beneath any headstone, especially the ones reading Mother, her body is softly held, decomposing generously into the earth, though in reality she was cremated, her ashes sprinkled by a friend in the Pacific. I find the anonymity of death comforting, as in my most peaceful moments, I too feel anonymous, unattached to the things that trouble me so in the course of my day-to-day, those things which baffle and tire, seduce and injure, those things which give shape and purpose to a life. Here I once would have added, I feel more at home amongst the dead than the living, but I'm less dramatic than I used to be, or perhaps I'm only more precise. And so instead I write more precisely, though even precision at times feels illusory, as both language and experience are constantly shifting. No sooner do we pin down an observation or a sentence than it changes, or we do. That I am alive among the dead, feeling and fearing my aliveness in relation to the stillness of the stones, the seeming changelessness of the epitaphs, though even stone is subject to incremental ruin. The dry whisper of leaves scuttled by a breeze, moved by no will of their own. To live is to exert willpower, and I want only to stay very still and very small, invisible yet visitable, gone but not forgotten. I am alive, and it hurts to admit it. Because what have I done with this unasked for gift, this burdensome present, besides squander it? There I would have dared to squander you, you limitless present tense. Rainer Rilke expresses this as a kind of freedom. But what have I done? Do I ever do, besides wish for a different life or a death that isn't my own, the fantasy distancing me from my actual life, a life I am trying not to live? And yet I am alive, even as I push life away. I am deep down desperate to be seduced by its secret congeniality, its hidden resplendence. And in so desiring, find myself pulled as if by hidden strings, arriving inside my body with a bang. Ouch! God damn. In this pain I lurch, flail, crying out, I'm alive, I'm alive. Oh, let it be so a little longer. And like this, beg life to take me back, though I consider myself undeserving, though I know again I'll stray, though I know both life and death, deserving and undeserving, to be binaries, and no binary to be true. I err again on the side of language, the patterned yet flexible weave which heaves up from the depths something more vital than itself. And you have a video, yes. Thank you.
We'll take questions and then, excuse me, we do have a treat once the Q&A session is done. Stephanie has prepared a video poem for us. It's 9 minutes that I hope you'll stay for. But any questions for our readers? Thank you so much. That was really fabulous.
As you read your book, and the long poem in your book, the you seemed to me changing. I mean, I wasn't quite sure where it landed. Sometimes I felt like it was the narrator you, the universal you, or the voice talking to itself. And I'm curious to know your intention in that you.
Yeah, there was definitely a self talking to the self. And I think there was something about that, like stepping out, and like sitting beside yourself. And, sometimes in like therapy or something, there are these exercises of like, well, what would you tell your 9-year-old self or something? And I mean, it didn't intentionally come from that, but I think there's a similar sense of like, sitting outside of yourself, things can channel differently, like something opens and clears the way. And I just found that, in the years that I was writing that book, I actually felt like I wasn't writing. It came as fragments, and I felt like I was in this blocked state. And so the only thing that came were these sort of like externalized, kind of like sitting beside myself, and I could only kind of speak out. And then that just ended up, it had this kind of comforting and open, it like kept the channel open, where otherwise I felt very blocked and closed. And even now when reading it, it's like it somehow can be back to me, but it also gives itself away. And so it felt somehow true to what was being said too, because it was personal, mythic things and lineage, but also there was something I was trying to give away to and offer out of myself. But thanks for that question.
Other questions?
Thank you. I was struck. I really enjoyed hearing your work together. And I've been thinking today about history and the sort of immediacy of it, the past, it being the past and also being a now. And I've been thinking about the fact that we can sort of only know causes and the effects. So the sort of like link between the things we think of in the calendar as having come before this moment, actually sort of lurking in this moment and being understood in this moment. I wonder if listening to one another's poetry, anything about history as some kind of circular activity arose for you, or if you were thinking about history maybe from the perspective of your own work, listening to someone else's discussion of it. If you could talk a little bit about history in your work.
That's I love that question of like how you said it, of like that there's, we have that hindsight to see, but then it's like there's something lurking in the now, that when we start looking at history, there's something we can understand about this moment. And I think, Darla talks a lot about, like that last passage you read about offering love backwards was so moving to me. And this idea that, and that's another one that's like therapy exercises where it's like, can you go back to like a childhood self or even somebody other than yourself and offer something to that person or place. And and I think we both are thinking about the circularity of time and the rhythms, and even like in Mayan mythology, that it's so circular. The world is created and destroyed, and these cycles created and destroyed, and it's like it's everything's iterative, and we look at these moments in history, and it's like so many we've heard so much about people talking about like, wow, Nazi Germany felt like this distant thing, but suddenly it's like it feel like now I understand it in a way that's not like through a textbook, but through this like immediacy and these like periods of awakening that like zip up time. And then there's something about the speculative mode of thinking, or like being in dream worlds where that hold that like prophetic or forward looking, like I can show you something now that maybe was past but also coming again. And also another thing of like Mayan dream logic is very of the prophetic, like dreams are often pointing forward. And so there's this idea that they're offering a picture that you're meant to sit with because it's telling you something about what's coming. And it's usually a warning. It's like dreams are usually taken pretty seriously. My grandma would ask my dreams every morning, if you dreamt of an owl, that was very bad. Like it was like a scary, it's like someone's going to die, someone's going to get sick, someone needs to take care of their health. And so there's like this acknowledgement that our bodies hold some kind of intuitive knowledge that can look back and forward, and like we need to be attendant to that.
Your question was so beautifully articulated, and I don't really know if I can speak to it directly, but it got me thinking about the ways that our histories are purposely obscured and kept from us, both on like personal levels and like, you know, our terrible educational system. And it also made me think about being adopted. I have a complicated relationship to the idea of like ancestry or lineage or like belonging. And so one way I've kind of learned to think about it is like in reverse. And what if I'm the ancestor and I don't have children or want children? So where do I direct that energy? How can I be that in the world? Yeah.
I wish we had written down your question because it
Yeah.
felt like a poem too.
I want you to write about that.
Thank you. Other questions? We got time for one or two more.
Does anyone here have a poem they want to share? Does anyone carry their poem?
They'll all come up with one in their back pocket.
Are most of you writers? You're already that. You're already doing that. Yeah. Numb. I feel numb all the time. Did we ever feel numb writing what we shared?
No, I feel like when I'm writing, I get into a space that's maybe kind of removed, not numb, but like there's a distance. And I do sometimes feel numb reading, though. Like, I don't know if numb is even the right word, but there's like it's not me anymore. Like, this isn't mine anymore. I'm like almost not even present here. Like, I'm just like the vehicle for this thing to beat. So I don't know. Yeah.
Numb is such an interesting word because it's like there's this idea that something's like suppressed or paralyzed. You know, it's like that there is feeling, but it's like held at bay or something. But I feel a lot of maybe a sense of trance or possession. Maybe it's like that is my version of numbness. It's like some part of me is asleep. And then in that sleep, something, it's like dreaming, right? It's like your consciousness has to go to sleep for the dream to assert itself. If you're awake, the dream doesn't come. And so there's something I seek in myself that goes to sleep so that I can write. And that, whatever you call that, like that visitor, that channeling, it's really important to me. But do you feel numb when you write? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A difference in myself or like between myself and my writing self? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's many selves within. And I feel like that's actually why I write, is because it's a place to access all of those. Maybe not even all, but many, many of them. And Darla and I were talking about this earlier. There's sometimes a sense when you read something that you've written and you don't recognize yourself. You're like, or like it's been in a drawer for so long, you're like, did I write this? And it's kind of shocking. And I think that we all have that. All of us have many selves, infinite selves probably. And but we're often like squeezed into little, versions of ourselves. And I think in our art and writing and music and different places, even interacting with different people, like we all have different parts of ourselves that emerge. And so it's very, even just where you are, like stepping into nature and different like desert versus rainforest, like different parts of yourself are like engaging and emerging and becoming.
Yeah, and I think sometimes for me, because when I'm writing, something may take a very long time to become, and I revisit it, and I'm a different self each time I revisit it. And so I do feel like there's maybe more and more of a separation as you get, like at the very start, maybe it's really close and you can't quite differentiate, but as you go, like it becomes more and more a crafted thing and more like, I might not even like relate to what I was saying at that point in my life, but I'm still trying to like capture the essence of that moment. Yeah.
Maybe one more question, if anyone has one.
Not really a question, but thank you so much. I loved both of your readings. I'm a translator, so you kept bringing up translation. The first poem that you read, you incorporated Spanish into your work, and I wondered how that's been received, if you do that regularly, because sometimes you translated what you had and sometimes you didn't. So I wondered what the reception's been of your work and the use of Spanish.
It's so varied, like who's receiving the work, and like tonight I just impulsively self-translated some pieces, but not all, and it just kind of was organic in the moment. But sometimes I don't do that, and they're kind of spontaneous in myself. And Darla was asking me yesterday about the Spanish and kind of where that comes, like what the impulse behind it. And sometimes it really is a sense of nostalgia, like for words, places, or things that feel almost lost to me, where the Spanish is the only thing that can hold it. Like I don't want it translated because then it loses something that that language carries. And it's been interesting because like some people will go who don't speak Spanish will go look it up and then they have an idea of what it says. Others don't, and they just allow the like unknowing of it and the music of it to be part. And then for Spanish speakers, it has a whole other resonance. And we have a mutual friend who is actually going to be here named Consuelo Wise, and her family is Guatemalan from the same part that my family is. And she had never heard my work until my book release. And at the reading, it was like it made her cry to hear the names of places and things that she had never in her life heard outside her family. And so it's like you don't know how it will ripple out, but it just felt important to preserve certain. No, she spoke Spanish. She was Ladina, but indigenous Ladina. And so she actually had mum words that she would speak like more like slang, but just here and there. But there was like the indigenous culture was very much in her ways still. Yeah. But that's a whole other layer, right? Is like the Spanish is also an imposition on top of an earlier language that was lost, and I feel like in my new work I'm kind of working with some of those strains. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Ishkik. Yeah. The next one maybe. You translate from Spanish or yeah. Very cool. Oh, thanks for your question. Yeah.
Darla, Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing these thoughts and for your incredible readings. And thank you to all of you for coming out on a Thursday evening. Thanks again to Gib and to Melody in the library for having us here. And I hope you'll stick around for the video poem if you can. Cheers. Thanks.